Good morning, everybody. This is the Farm Engineer, and today we're going to talk about the post-decadence period of America. A lot of people call it the SHTF. I think that's pretty negative. I think there's some truth to it, though, right? Something bad is going to happen, but you know what happens after something bad happens? Is something much better comes out of it, especially in America. So what is the SHTF scenario? What that is when our institutions, our safety nets, our social, government, and corporate support gets cut off, right? And you think this is going to be some kind of Mad Max scenario where all of a sudden we're fighting each other over gas, or we're, struggling to find food or something like that, right? And there may be some truth to that, but I don't think it's going to be the kind of post-apocalypse you'd see in a Mad Max scenario. What I would see it as is a return to what the rest of the world pretty much has now. What's the difference between Thailand and a country like Mexico, right? Because if you look at it on the surface, you look at there's poor roads, fuel is difficult to come by, the government is not really that powerful. It seems like on the surface, those two countries should be similar. But no, when I go to Thailand, it is fairly safe. People are very friendly for the most part. Both countries have really good food, but there's something different. And I think America is going to be a lot more like Thailand. No matter how you slice it, the SHTF scenario results in the United States losing its currency hegemony over the rest of the world, right? Either because the United States currency itself is no longer the reserve currency, or because the United States citizen actually doesn't have a great command over US currency, such as through inflation or something else like that, right? All of the big players have taken up all the benefits of inflation, printed out more money and kept it for themselves, and everybody else has inflated prices and their wages haven't gone up, right? After a while, the United States citizens are going to have to tighten their belt. I think that's a really good thing. I think we've had it way too good for way too long, and it's actually destroyed what Americans should be. Now, there's a quote by Theodore Roosevelt. To sum the quote up, the love of soft living is what's going to destroy America. And I think it's already happened. I think America has already been destroyed in Theodore Roosevelt's eyes. What I think we have right now is an opportunity to allow this economic downturn to reshuffle the way we think about ourselves as citizens and as Americans. Now, you look at other countries that don't have the purchasing power that we do. People buy things secondhand. People tend to, they don't consume nearly as much. If they want to go shopping, they'll go to a night market. People tend to make more craft goods. I live in Tennessee, and Tennessee has a thriving economy that is completely under the surface. There are farmers that sell to citizens. There are butchers that sell directly to citizens. There are craftspeople that sell directly to citizens. Etsy is just sort of the online version of all of that. The United States is going to return to more of that as our currency loses value. We won't be able to import as much, right? If we can't import as much, that means we can't consume as much. That means that it has to be made locally, and we have to be careful with our purchases. Now, this is the important part. Being careful with our purchases means that we are being thoughtful and considered. We don't just go to the gas station and buy a pocket knife because we have to go camping that weekend and we plan on just throwing the pocket knife away, right? That's not a conscientious purchase. So what happens when you're not conscientiously purchasing things is you don't actually take into account logic. What you end up getting hooked by is feelings. You get hooked by emotions. Emotions are what drives impulse buys. And if you look at our advertisement from the 1920s and before versus the post-World War II era, you're going to see a humongous difference in the way that we advertise because we started advertising with feelings mostly rather than logic. Advertising and marketing makes up the majority of the art we produce. Art as in culture, music, jingles, right? When Barry Manilow made Like a Good Neighbor, State Farm is there. That's art. That's in your brain right now. You're going to hear it all day now. When you have visuals, that affects the culture. And you see that right now. This last year of just woke craziness has really opened my eyes to how much advertising actually sets the tone. Now, if advertising is forced to cater to a conscientious audience rather than an audience driven by impulse and emotion, you're going to see the culture completely shift. You're already seeing it shift right now with these woke movies being, box office bombs, right? You're seeing it with the NFL and Major League Baseball already. The culture is going to shift more. Politics might be downstream of culture, but culture is downstream of finances. Advertisements are actually forced to respect you. That sounds pretty good. And the culture that they drive, the massive multi-million dollar, multi-billion dollar industry, is now having to cater to people who think to make decisions, not just feel. You're going to see a major shift. Because the US dollar is not going to have the purchasing power abroad, large corporations are going to lose the advantage of all the cheap and unethical and polluting labor overseas, right? So we never really reduced our pollution, we just exported it. We never really reduced our human exploitation in America, a la, The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, or, slavery. We didn't actually reduce that, we just exported it. If the power of the US dollar in the citizens' hands, then we are going to be no longer incentivized to outsource our labor and our goods. That means that more local labor and goods are going to start taking over. This is not just Etsy, this also is just farmers, right? So if you have a person in your community that has your connection to the beef farmers because he's a good friend of them, or he's their broker or agent, you're going to be more codependent on that person to get your beef. Right? You're not going to want to just have a beef with that person in your community who deals the beef. This means that our relationships stop being throwaway. Strong and independent, it's a good marketing phrase. One of the tricks of marketers is they take something that is unequivocally good and then they mix it with the thing they want to insert, right? A little bit of sugar and then whatever they're trying to slip in there. Strong is good. Strong is good. Independent is a fool's errand. We're not supposed to be independent. We're not supposed to be in the forest all by ourselves making everything. We're not supposed to be the kings of our own kingdom, right? You are supposed to be codependent on your community. Someone in your community knows how to farm. Someone in your community knows how to make pottery. Someone knows how to make jewelry. Someone knows how to butcher beef. Someone knows how to cut the grass, right? Codependency is actually how communities get formed. So as we become weaned off of corporate goods that are easy and cheap, we start having to focus conscientiously on goods that are locally made. This makes it so that we have to have social connections that are now no longer throwaway. This is the most important part of the golden age. Because I don't know if you've realized this, but a lot of our relationships are throwaway. You can see it with our current politics. People will just excise members of the family because they disagree on something as trivial as politics and who they're voting for. That's ridiculous. Our relationships should not be this throwaway. I want you guys to look forward to the golden age. Things are going to be made more locally. Purchasing decisions will be made more conscientiously. We are like a child who has been eating too much sugar, and now mom and dad are going to force us to wean off of it. It's time to wean off the sugar. It's going to be painful, but I promise you, you will be fine if you only have 2 weeks worth of clothes in your closet. It will not be the end of the world. You will be fine if Christmas is homemade things that you've given to each other, or something that you've had to save up for to get. I don't see how a world where the things that we buy and own have meaning to us, where the people that we buy them from have meaning to us, I don't see how that could possibly be a bad thing. It's going to be an adjustment. We have an addiction, and sooner or later, it's going to go cold turkey. I don't think we ever really fixed what happened in 1929. We got bailed out by a world war of all things, us making weapons for them, and then us being the only industrial power left standing afterwards, aside from Switzerland. We reaped the benefits and we've reaped the spoils, but we never fixed the underlying issue. I think if we have an SHTF scenario, I think it's going to be the best thing for us. I think it might usher in the golden age. Well, thank you for joining me, and I will see you guys next time. Keep growing.